If you've not read the books that House of the Dragon is based upon, I understand how confusing it must be for you to keep a track of so many silver-haired characters with the name of Targaryen or Valerian. In the most recent episode of the prequel show, a major book character's name has been revealed. Now, most of us believe that he was cut out from the show, but I guess the show makers had a change of heart after all. In House of the Dragon Season 2 second episode, Otto Hightower finally mentions the existence of Daeron Targaryen, Alicent's fourth child who will be playing a key role in the upcoming civil war, also known as the Dance of the Dragons. This revelation might come as a big surprise to those who have not read George R.R. Martin's Fire and Blood, since the series has only shown Alicent Hightower's three older children, Aegon, Helaena, and Aemond. Plus, Daeron's absence in Season 1, even during the flashbacks to the Targaryen kid's childhood, led many to speculate that the show had decided to write out his character entirely. But now we finally know that he's being set up to become a key piece in the cutthroat chess play of the Targaryen family tree. It's quite strange, though, that his parents and siblings never even mentioned his name before, especially after Viserys' death at the end of Season 1. Despite this, Daeron is finally about to be introduced. After being removed as Hand of the King, his grandfather Otto Hightower plans to go to Old Town to look after Daeron, ultimately setting up his long-awaited appearance in the Game of Thrones prequel. But the character hasn't been cast yet, which means he'd not make an appearance until the next season. In this video, we'll discuss what sort of role Daeron's character would be playing in the upcoming civil war. Of course, his adaptation could be different in the show. Even then, House of the Dragon has stayed true to its source to quite an extent. So, without wasting another moment, let's get right to it. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Daeron Targaryen was apparently in Old Town all along in the House of the Dragon. Of course, it's not clear exactly when Daeron Targaryen was sent to Old Town, but we know that he's been there since before Rhaenyra's son Joffrey Valerian was born. In House of the Dragon Season 1, there was a 10-year time jump from Rhaenyra's wedding to Joffrey's birth, and during this time, only Alicent and Viserys' other children, Aegon, Helaena, and Aemond, were seen in King's Landing. With his two eldest sons already having places for themselves in King's Landing, King Viserys I Targaryen sent his youngest child Daeron to Old Town in order to serve as a cupbearer and squire for Lord Hobart Hightower, Otto's older brother. While Daeron begins squiring for Lord Hobart Hightower, showrunner Ryan Condal has confirmed that during the Civil War, Lord Ormond Hightower, Otto's nephew, is now the Lord of Old Town. Apart from that, it was most definitely Sir Otto Hightower's idea to have Daeron raised in Old Town, allowing Otto and Alicent to maintain that influence over House Hightower even without holding a seat in the council. Daeron's presence likely made the Hightowers in Old Town stronger and fiercer supporters of Otto's plans, thus preparing them to take any decisive action when Otto and Alicent seized the Iron Throne to declare Aegon as the rightful king after Viserys' death. Plus, having Daeron in Old Town meant the Hightower seat was protected by a dragon, since Daeron is bonded with the young dragon Tessarion. It's also a possibility that Viserys may have agreed to send Daeron to Old Town because of the growing tensions between Alicent and Rhaenyra's children. Although it's still hilarious to me how Daeron never bothered coming back to King's Landing. Even when his father was fatally ill, the poor dude must have missed so much family drama. Most importantly, every source material had Daeron in it while the kids were fighting each other. So in that sense, Daeron should have been in all the scenes of episodes 6 and 7 of the first season, when Alicent's children were fighting Rhaenyra's boys. In George R.R. Martin's Fire and Blood, it's mentioned that Jacaerys and Daeron were born around the same time, and Viserys tried to prevent any hostility between them by having them share a wet nurse, which would make them milk brothers. However, as House of the Dragon shows, this plan didn't really work, as the animosity between the younger Targaryen Greens and Blacks only worsened. It'll still be interesting to see how these childhood resentments have festered within Daeron, given that he was the only sibling that was forced to leave the castle and sent to Old Town for several years while others lavished themselves at King's Landing. Daeron Targaryen has his own dragon. The mention of Daeron Targaryen in House of the Dragon Season 2 has also dropped a soft hint at the greater dragon power that the Green faction holds in the Dance of the Dragons. While Aegon and Aemond ride Sunfire and Vhagar, Helaena is most definitely not expected to ride Dreamfire at all, as she could barely do it in the book. However, the Green faction still has Daeron's dragon Tessarion in Old Town to bolster King Aegon's forces in the Reach. Plus, Daeron's already an experienced dragon rider when the battles of the Dance of the Dragons begins, so he definitely won't be needing any training to command Tessarion. Popularly known as the Blue Queen, Tessarion bonded with Daeron before he left for Old Town. According to Fire and Blood, he didn't actually learn to ride Tessarion until after he left King's Landing. If we go by the books, Daeron's the only known rider of this blue-winged copper-scaled dragon. While it's unclear which dragon laid Tessarion's egg, we know that she hatched from the dragon egg that was placed underneath Daeron's cradle when he was an infant. Among the Green faction's dragons in House of the Dragon, Tessarion is the youngest one. and is only 1/3 the size of Vermithor, who will soon be claimed by the smith named Hugh Hammer. God, with so many exciting arcs coming up in the show, I can barely keep calm. Daeron's backstory in the Book of Fire and Blood. Daeron's played a rather important role in the books, even before the events that led up to the second season of the show. In Fire and Blood, Daeron Targaryen was born in late 114 AC, shortly after Rhaenyra gave birth to her oldest son, Jaehaerys. Like in the show, Daeron already had 2 older brothers and 1 older sister. According to the books, during this time, the rift between Alicent and Rhaenyra had become unbearably worse, as they always quarreled and never got along. So, in the hopes of helping his family get along, Viserys made Jaehaerys and Daeron share a wet nurse, so they could forge a different bond that might just break the ice between the two sides. But Daeron grew up alongside Aegon and Daemon, who poisoned his mind against Rhaenyra's children, leading him to become bitter towards Jaehaerys, Lucerys, and Joffrey. Even though Daeron and his siblings were forced to spend a lot of time with their nephews during training at arms, studying with maesters or attending feasts, they still couldn't sort out their arguments and the enmity only increased. As I mentioned before, later Daeron bonded with Tessarion at the age of 6 and was eventually sent to Oldtown at the age of 12 to serve as a squire and a cupbearer to Lord Hightower. In Fire and Blood, Daeron was considered to be the most popular prince out of Alicent's 4 children. He was described as gentle, courteous, soft-spoken, handsome, and smart, which made him the most promising son of Viserys and Alicent. After Otto was dismissed as Hand of the King by Aegon II, he told Alicent that he would return to the High Towers to mentor Daeron instead, as he was more receptive to instruction, and that's exactly what Otto wanted to do in the show too. But maybe now he's going to the Tyrells instead. Who knows? What is Daeron Targaryen's role in the Dance of the Dragons? According to Fire and Blood, which is written in the style of a real history book, in 129 AC, after the death of King Viserys I Targaryen, the Dance of the Dragons began with Daeron's older brother, Aegon II Targaryen, claiming the Iron Throne for himself, even though their half-sister Rhaenyra Targaryen had already been named by Viserys as his heir. At this time, Daeron was still in Oldtown, serving as a squire for Lord Ormond Hightower. When both the factions were out for blood after the death of Prince Lucerys Velaryon and Prince Jaehaerys Targaryen, Daeron joined Lord Ormond Hightower's army as they marched from Oldtown to join forces with the Green faction. During the Battle of the Honeywine, Ormond was almost on the verge of defeat until Daeron swooped in on Tessarion to rescue his cousin and the entire army. In gratitude, Ormond celebrated Daeron with a whole feast and knighted him with the Valyrian sword, Vigilance, bestowing upon him the title of Daeron the Daring. Now, after King Aegon II Targaryen was injured in the battle at Rook's Rest, Prince Aemon Targaryen took command. Aemon believed that his uncle and Rhaenyra's husband, Prince Daemon Targaryen, was the greatest threat to their rule. He was determined to defeat him in battle and wanted the glory of defeating Daemon all for himself. Aemon thought that Daeron was too young to help, so he didn't even bother asking Daeron for his assistance when he was planning to retake Harrenhal from Daemon. Later, Aemon died during a duel with Daemon. Finally, after Rhaenyra took over King's Landing, she started considering Daeron as the biggest threat to her rule, given his skills as a warrior. Meanwhile, Daeron stayed with Lord Ormond Hightower's army and went on to scout ahead of them on Tessarion. Everyone in the realm had heard many tales of Daeron's prowess on Tessarion by then, so in order to avoid Tessarion's wrath, the Shield Islands, House Oakheart, and House Rowan submitted to the Green faction. But Daeron refused to show any mercy to Lady Caswell because his nephew, Prince Maelor Targaryen, had lost his life at Bitterbridge. He sacked the city and had Tessarion burn down the entire town during the sack of Bitterbridge. During this time, Rhaenyra had sent Ulf White and Hugh Hammer on their dragons to defend Tumbleton against Daeron and Tessarion. If you don't know, both Ulf and Hugh were dragon seeders, or bastards of Valerians and Targaryens, who were called forth by Prince Jaehaerys during the sowing, in order to join the black side of the war only if they could claim any dragons. But during the first Battle of Tumbleton, both Hugh and Ulf betrayed Rhaenyra and switched sides to join the Green faction during the first Battle of Tumbleton. This is also when Ormond Hightower lost his life during the battle, allowing several nobles to argue over who should be responsible to lead command of the Green faction in battle. Meanwhile, Sir Hobart Hightower was ordered by Daeron to stop the brutal pillaging of Tumbleton, but he failed. Eventually, everything began to fall apart for the Greens as even Hugh and Ulf refused to join Daeron in an attack on King's Landing unless the demands were met. Apparently, naming Ulf as the Lord of Bitterbridge was just not enough. They both had insatiable demands for more. Soon after the fall of King's Landing, King Aegon II went missing, and with Aemon being killed in the battle above the God's Eye, Prince Daeron was the first in line for the Iron Throne. Lord Anwin Peake, one of the leaders at Tumbleton, urged that Daeron should immediately be declared as the Prince of Dragonstone. Other nobles of the realm who believed Aegon II to be dead wanted Daeron to be crowned as their king. During this time, Hugh Hammer claimed that he should be the king of the Iron Throne in the Seven Kingdoms, and while everyone was shocked at this bold declaration, Daeron threw wine at his face as a reply to his claim. Hugh then started wearing an iron crown and began preparing to make his claim turn into a reality. This gravely offended the Lords and Knights of the Reach. They simply couldn't comprehend the betrayer's arrogance and formed a group known as the Caltrops. This group began plotting the deaths of the betrayer and everyone else who supported his cause. Although Daeron wasn't a member of the Caltrops, the group definitely sought his consent before acting, which he gave without any hesitation. 2 days later, the Second Battle of Tumbleton began and Prince Daeron died fighting during the battle. While the exact circumstances of his death are still unclear, the most common story is that Daeron was killed by Black Trombo with a morning star while stumbling out of his tent with his clothes on fire after Adam's dragon Sea Smoke began his attacks. But there's also another version that says he was murdered by a random man-at-arms with a sword, as he didn't know who Daeron really was. Lastly, a third account, which was supported by Munkin and Gildane, claims that Daeron's burning tent collapsed on top of him, which ultimately killed him. Whatever it might be, Daeron the Daring's death is the most mysterious part of the Dance of the Dragons because his body was never identified, so nobody really knows for sure what happened to him. And because of this very dilemma, many people try to seize this opportunity, pretending to be the young prince so they could make false claims during the reign of King Aegon III Targaryen. But none of these men were Daeron Targaryen, as Master Yandel confirmed that they were all proven to be imposters. Maybe the prequel show will change that for us and finally give us a solid closure on how Daeron the Daring met his end. Whatever it might be, we do know that Daeron will go on to become an asset for the Green faction in the upcoming battles of the Dance of the Dragons. And even if House of the Dragon showrunners decide to step away from the source material in his case, like they did with Laenor Velaryon, it's difficult to predict what other outlined endings they've thought for our boy Daeron. Nonetheless, he's not expected to be a permanent fixture in the future of the House of the Dragon. But how do you think they should write Daeron's character? And according to you, who would be the perfect actor to portray him? Let us know in the comment box below. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.